good evening, one and all. Good evening, my brothers. Today is a special day in the lives of the Jamaican people. It's special because one of the major political parties in Jamaica is having their conference today, the Jamaica Labour Party. There is much expectation that this conference will learn about the date for the next local government election and possible the general election. I am not sure, but what is clear from all the announcement is that we are now in the electoral season. We see a lot of decision has been taken basically to bribe the Jamaican people to get them to support this government. There's there's a fare reduction already in the public transportation and much people talking about that the election season is on. I am not going to dwell too much into the JLP conference, but rather we're going to spend today looking at a possible manifesto. Mr. John Arton has been pushing us in that direction for some time. We really feel that we need to come up with a working people agenda. He's not here today. Well, I say he's not here, but he will be joining us to argue this idea for us. I am Michael Nita, your host, and along with me is Patrick McCarthy and Las Crawford. As I said earlier, I'm waiting for Mr. Orton to join us. Mr. Arville Civil from East Kingston will join us. Unfortunately, Maxine is traveling, so she can't join us. And once they join us, we'll open up the discussion. Gentlemen, good afternoon. What is your take on what is happening right now in Jamaica with the JLP election and all of that stuff? Are we looking to see an election soon? Is that what we are anticipating from the coming out of this conference?
Well,
Last, Patrick.
yeah. Yeah, first of all, good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone, listeners all over, and brothers here on the panel. Yes, my thought is that this might be their way of testing the waters, by possibly um, setting a date for the local government elections, and then to really see where it goes in terms of their popularity and support, and how they can best maneuver, right, going towards the national election. So that's my take on it in a nutshell.
Yeah, man, I think it's clear. The fact that we're seeing things like rollback in bus fares, we're seeing a lot of new contracts coming on stream, a lot of road projects across the country. It would seem that the government is preparing and preparing the minds of the people, towards an election. It would seem like there are some mind-bending strategies being employed by the party to I mean, acknowledging that they have been slipping in the polls over the recent months. You can see that they are trying a number of things to gain, gain back some traction with a view of calling the election. Not sure whether it will be done today, but even if it's not done today, very soon, I think they'll be calling the election dates.
You think so?
Yeah, man, definitely.
But well, that's one possibility, yes. But I'm wondering whether or not this is just. I'm wondering whether this is just a ploy. That they build the hype up, but they're not going to call election because of the polls. The polls is showing that the PMP is in the lead and Golden is gaining traction. So, is this just a ploy, or you think it's a genuine attempt to mobilize the people?
Yeah, I think the thing is they're trying to build some expectation amongst the population that there's better to come. So I mean, it is in responding to what you are saying, Mikey. I mean, the polls are showing one thing, and they're trying to regain some of that ground, before the elections. So I think that's why they're doing some of these things.
And this reduction in fear, that's
Yeah.
an outright bribery of the Jamaican people.
That's unprecedented,
It's like them take the Jamaican people for fool. Them can starve us for 4 years, and in the final year, them come out with a bag of money and a pass round and try to get people to vote. And I do understand what's going on, because I hear some of my good friends telling the Jamaican people that them should accept the money and vote them out. And I'm not comfortable with that, because it's like you're compromising yourself when you start take the money from the politician and different. And knowing the politician in Jamaica, at some point, he is going to remind you that he gave you money. Or not, he's going to tell his friend that he gave you money and you didn't do what you said you were going to do. Isn't that a sort of compromise? You're really putting yourself in a compromising situation.
I don't see that. I don't see where the compromise is, because the fact of the matter is that if he's coming to buy a vote, I'm getting exactly what I'm paying for, right? Because when you elect him, right, you elect him on the basis that he will uphold his end of the bargain in terms of what he says he's gonna do. And the history is that that's not what they do, right? And particularly when we're talking about governments like the one in office right now, right? It's far from what's desired, right? It's like the opposite end of the pole. And furthermore, he's not coming into the voting booth with you to see how you vote, right? So you're not accountable to him in any way. You're just simply accepting an offer. That's all.
But my question is, by accepting that offer, aren't you compromising yourself?
No,
Okay.
because it's not a pack. It's not a pack to signing.
The history of election in Jamaica has been full with that, with people taking political party money and still not voting for the political party. That has
Exactly.
that's part of our political history. The fact is, people are starving, a lot of people in need. And if these guys are willing to go around and shell out money like they have it, I mean, there's no way you can tell people who are hungry and in need not to take that money. What you need to tell people is that they need to vote wisely. Don't be bribed. Don't make the money have the effect that the politicians wanted. You take the money and do what you think is right. You know, that's the important part of it. I mean, when you look at their election, their conference today, they are spending between $50 and $60 million on this conference, right? Meaning they're trying to get out as much people as they can to make a showing, right? To make the Jamaican people feel like, I mean, the whole Jamaica is behind them, so you must join the bandwagon also. They're trying to create that kind of impression, so they're spending as much money as they can. They're going to pay people to come to conference. They're going to provide all kind of transportation and whatever to come to the conference. Many people will go to the conference, but that don't mean that these people have to vote for them. People, they can go to the conference and still not vote. You know, so.
Well, somehow I am. It doesn't sit comfortable with me because if you're talking about a new Jamaica, you know, at some point we have to say enough is enough. I know the politician them going to the community and then pass out the money and what have you. But by accepting, this is my opinion, by accepting that money, you're putting yourself in a compromising situation because I've seen it happen in Waterhouse. When you take the money and you don't vote, the politician is going to remind you that you didn't vote, and he's going to tell his friends and his comrade that you collect the money. So what, where that leave you? How can you honestly, in an independent mind, I say, listen,
look at it another way, Mikey. Imagine him pay him money for you vote for him. By the time him go and tell people him out of office because he already vote him out.
Let's look at this thing real seriously now. Let's look at this thing real seriously.
Yeah, but
let me ask you this.
I assume that's what we are doing.
No, but let me ask you. No, I don't think so. Let me ask you this. Do you think that it is appropriate for a politician to become offering you money for vote?
No.
Okay, so what integrity you're talking about then in terms of taking the money and not meeting your obligation to him?
I'm talking about the individual who expose themselves to that sort of corrupt practice. Because it's corruption.
But it's a corruption to begin with.
No, let me finish. I'm talking about the individual who expose themselves to this sort of corrupt behavior. And once exposed, it's very difficult to pull yourself back and speak with an independent voice and look at the politician and say this. And I say that because I remember in the 1970s, a group of us was standing on a corner in Waterhouse and Dudley Thompson pull up, right? And his only suggestion was, guys, you want to cook a pot, cook some curry goat and whatever. And a certain individual got up and had to back him off and say, no, we need that. You can't come by with them with it. You know, my concern, I know the Jamaican people, you have some people hungry and whatever. My concern is whether or not this corrupt you, the sort of behavior corrupt you, and you lose that independent voice to be critical of the MP. Isn't this something that we should worry about?
The thing that we should be more concerned about is, right, no politician should be compelling you in terms of how you should or shouldn't vote. Right? Whether using money or not using money. Right? It is up to the individual to vote in accordance with his own understanding of what's going on. Right? It's one thing you have a campaign. Why do you think campaigns are so costly? It might not be buying individual votes, but it is certainly in order to get votes, right? So that in itself, right, is unethical. So when you talk about looking at this thing in terms of right and wrong, taking the money or not taking the money, right? That really doesn't mean much. The real thing that's important is for you to vote and vote wisely, right? Vote in accordance with your own conscience and understanding, right? And not allow yourself to be bought or to be insulted by being offered money for your vote.
Mic check.
I can hear Ratigan. Ratigan, you can hear us? Ratigan. But the point I'm making, and I really want to pursue this somewhere, is whether or not by accepting this money to vote, you are compromising yourself. That's the question. And I'm saying that, yes, you are.
If you take this money and make this money influence you in the way that the politician intend, of course you're compromising yourself. Absolutely. If you take this money, and if everybody take this money that this politician is offering and still vote him out, you don't think that's a lesson to him? If a politician come in a Waterhouse and him spend $10 million to influence the people, and the people then take the $10 million, and in the end him realize that the people them take him money and vote him out, you don't think that's a lesson?
Of course, it is
of course. Lesson. You think that compromise the people who vote him out?
I really think.
No, you think it compromise the people who vote him out? You think him have one up on these people? Or the people have one up on him?
I really think that it compromised them. It compromised them. They might vote. They might vote against him and what have you.
Mikey.
How does it compromise them?
There's an expectation. Once the politician give you that money, there's an expectation he has or she has. That
you're not even a binding contract.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but nothing goes like that. Nothing goes like that. Nothing goes like that. It's an insult, first of all, for him to come soliciting your vote that way. Right? What that says to me is, right, because politicians certainly wouldn't approach me, right, for buy my vote. Right? Because I'm going to see him coming, and him certainly, right, when get an understanding of who I'm dealing with the moment him come, right, for talk to me. So when it comes to the politician offering money for vote, I'm saying that that's potentially a corrupt politician. That's my position, right? So whether or not I take the money doesn't mean anything.
He's a corrupt politician.
Yes.
That's a potential about Ratigan.
Yo.
Ratigan, can you hear? We're talking about whether or not taking the money from the politician to vote compromise the voter. I think it does. Once you take the money from the politician to vote, you are participating in a corrupt practice which eventually gonna compromise you, because the politician is expecting you to vote. You might not vote the way he wants to, but he has that record of giving you money, and he's in a position to say to his friends, listen, I gave this person X amount of money, but they didn't vote. What do you think? Does it compromise the recipients of this money?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Greetings to the distinguished panel, Las, Patrick, yourself, Nita, and your viewing audience. It's a very simple issue to deal with. Taking the money does not compromise the voter. They don't see it as a compromise. They don't regard it as a compromise. The politicians don't even see it as a compromise either. And look, if they're going to ask them to vote for especially Jamaican corrupt politicians, they're going to ask them to vote. At least take something from them for the vote. You don't have to vote for them. That's a different question now. If you take the money and then you vote for them, you take the money and you vote your conscience, because it's going to be difficult for you to look at somebody who's in need right now and say, don't take the 5,000, stand up for your principle. That's not going to work. We know that, right? So the next best thing is to say, okay, you know what? Let's get in your headspace. Take the money, but vote your conscience. If you think that this politician is the best person to lead your constituency, then vote for that person. But the idea of telling people not to take money, I think it's best. The best way to go about it is not to tell people who are in need not to take money, is to ensure that politicians don't offer the money, because that's a crime. But that's the way you approach it. I think if you approach it from the standpoint of the criminal justice system, to say it's illegal to purchase votes, I think you stand a better chance of ridding money's creeping into the political sphere like that. But to look at the recipient now and say, you don't have a moral high ground because you're collecting it from this guy who doesn't have a moral high ground to offer it to you in the first place. The man need milk.
Really?
But I would tell him that you need milk.
That is my worry.
What?
And Mikey and Ratty.
That is my worry, Ratty.
The thing is, as Patrick said, these politicians, they wouldn't come to me and you and Patrick with that kind of thing, right? They know the level of consciousness in the people they would approach like that. They wouldn't approach everybody in a constituency like that, right? So the people they are approaching, they would say, okay, these people's conviction are not as strong on a particular subject that they would tell me, get away, right? The people they would kind of approach is the people who they'd probably think their economic situation is at a certain level and their convictions towards certain social issues are at a certain level, right? So it's not like a politician would go to anybody and tell them, say, boy, I may offer you money, Certain people in the constituency, the politician walk past them because they know if him go to them type of people, they're going to raise them up, straight up, right? So the kind of people they are approaching, me and you can tell those people, say, don't take the money, because they already filter out, the politician already filter out the people who would outrightly reject him on that basis, right? And zero in on a certain group that they know either economically or awareness-wise is at a level that they would consider taking the money. Right?
Them figure them can play them for a fiddle.
Exactly.
All right, let me bring Herb and John out into the conversation. Herb and John, we're discussing the question of whether or not this practice amongst the politicians coming out and paying people to vote, whether or not by participating in that practice, you're compromising yourself and you're not in a position to criticize because you accept money from the politician to vote. What is your views on that?
But they make Herb go first because Herb closer to
John?
that.
Herb.
John,
No
Herb,
run-ins.
what is your
I
view?
don't pay anybody
By,
to
by,
get votes. Oh, I made that clear.
I didn't mean it that way, you know.
but
I'm
does it?
just meaning know the
But
run-ins.
the question,
All right,
but,
I hear you. I hear you.
no, but
Loud
the,
and clear.
but the question is, by accepting that money, does it compromise you
Yeah,
and sort of
Mike, look, when we're
limit
growing
the
up,
extent to which you can become critical of the politician?
right? When we're growing up, we have something that our parents instill in us. It's a value system, right? So if your parents
Okay.
instill how to rip somebody off, then that's your value system. Now, Jesse Jackson is saying you're not responsible for being down, but you're responsible for getting yourself up. So for those people with a value system that's below standard, they have to raise up the game, so to speak. If you accept that bribes and that corruption is a part of your lifestyle, if that's what you want, right, then you're going to engage in that system. Obama had those decisions to make when he was in Chicago because he came up in a very corrupt Mayor Richard Daley system where Daley controlled a lot of those politicians, right? It was like Edgar Hoover. Him do background on them, deep dives, and him watch them. Sure. And he knew who was dirty and who was clean. He knew who he could compromise. Russians call it compromat or whatever. So the bottom line is, if you are able to survive a system like Chicago and still rise to the top as president of the United States and don't have a single major investigation to hit you while you're in there, then it shows that your value system has been effective and that you don't have to worry about ever buying anybody off, buying votes anywhere. John Kennedy's father did that for him during the Kennedy, elections here in the U.S. And the mafia went around and they bought up a lot of votes, they stuffed ballot boxes, they did all kinds of stuff. But the problem is, once Kennedy got in
I,
there and he turned his brother Robert loose on the mafiosi, prosecuting them, then that spelled doom for that whole family, right? Because you can't bite the hand that feed you and expect that they're going to still respect you. So if a politician wants to go that route and to buy their way in, then they're going to have to stick to that underhandedness their entire career. And they're going to be easy to discover and easy to be compromised. I guarantee it.
but what about the voter? Doesn't it compromise the voter?
It does. Because, like we said over and over, you giving somebody 5 or 10,000 Jamaican dollars. How much is that? That's like between 40 something to $90, right? And this giving you 5 years in office. And in 5 years in office, you're gonna make what? Over $100 million. The voters should ask themselves, I'm giving you the chance to make over $100 million, and all you giving me is $5 or $10,000. What sense does that make? Especially if that person caused you to pay more taxes. Especially if that person caused the country to fail. It's on you. You bought your vote, you gave it to them willingly, and now you have a problem. And that $5,000, $10,000, what is it gonna get me? Right? You go out and you shop and it's done. You give it to your girlfriend or your wife and it's gone. And you in the same situation or worse later on when that money evaporates. So when you're looking at what is going on with the vote buying and what has resulted from 2020 till now, even go back to before 2020 when the good lady got elected in Portland, right? What did they that gain the people of Portland? They can't get the roads fixed, bridge washout, road washout, and the murders going up, crime going up, right? Is that what you paid for? That's a problem. So how do you resolve these things in your mind? You can't.
Mhm.
You know, how can I put it? They gotta raise the game up. They gotta demand more from the politicians and demand more money if you're gonna sell out. 50,000, 500,000. You know, what's the cost of your vote? And what is that gonna get you?
John, what's your
Yes,
take, John?
yes. So I start by asking the question, do politicians need money to run in election? Yes or no? The answer is yes. Every capitalist system, because I'm not an authority on the other kind of system, I know for sure that to run in a capitalist system, you need money. The second question is, there are two types of money. The one that you and I see every day, which is the little man money, to buy, whether that money it come in the form of chicken back, or whether that money come in the form of, what was the example you used there, Herb? From the days of Marcus Garvey. I always remember that Marcus Garvey talk about the little chicken back, or the equivalent of chicken back in those days.
And rice and peas.
Those money is what the poor people give. The regular man in the street give. But there is big money that you and I do not see, which is not declared in every country. In the United States, it's declared. One thing I've learned living in America is that there are two kinds of money, and I don't think Jamaica is any different. Politicians need money to win. The money might be bigger in America, but it's needed. So the question you have to ask yourself is, when you, I used to use it when I was in sales. It says, he who pays the piper, for him shall the piper play. Can you compare the money that the gun lobby pay to in the American system to what the donations from all the parents who have lost children from gun shooting in America? So the lobby that pays big money has more impact than all of the money collected from small people. To me, it is of no consequence that small people might give money and vote for somebody else. The hope is that when you contribute to a party as a small man, it's because you support the manifesto of that party. You support the program, or you
But
support.
that's not.
We're
But
talking
that's not the
about
question we're asking. That's not the
not the
question.
No, I'm going
contribution.
to answer your
Before us
question
is
now. I'm going to answer your question
yeah.
now. So that the point is that when you when a small man contribute, pay money or get money, not pay money, but receive, it's the same thing. Receive a chicken back or a chicken leg. Is that, are you obligated to vote for the party? My answer would be no. There's no obligation. The question really is, does that party or the candidate represent your interests? If he or she does, then there's no contradiction, so to speak. If he doesn't, then there is. But I don't think you are obligated to vote for the person who give you more chicken back, as opposed to the one who doesn't. The big issue is who is giving the big money. That's where, who is giving the big money, and whether the person who give the big money calling the shots. So to answer your question, my answer would be, I wouldn't tell people to take the chicken back or not to take the chicken back. In reality, if you're starving, if you're getting some chicken back and you can make 2 soup, I would take the chicken back same way. It is neither here nor there to me. But it doesn't mean I must vote for the party that give out the most chicken back.
No, I'm not saying it does. I'm not saying it does. My question is whether or not that compromise the voter by accepting the money from the politician, whether or not it compromised the voter.
What does a compromise mean? No, my attitude to it is, if my answer to that question is it's neither here nor there, in hard time, I would take the chicken back. It doesn't compromise that I must vote for the one who give me the chicken back. My attitude would be, take it to eat, feed your picnic, and I'm sorry if my response is a little short term, but that's how I see it.
Okay, John. And what do you say to him when next you see him and he asks you if you vote?
Tell him yes.
Tell him yes, I'd like to vote. What do you mean what I say? The question is not whether I vote or not. The question is, did I vote for the man who give me the chicken back?
Yeah, if you can, that's question.
Yes, I vote for the man who give me the chicken back because I prefer the man program. But if I don't prefer the man program, I take it because I picked them a staff, and I vote for the next man who did not give me the chicken back.
Well, I think this is a good
answer. I can answer the man who give the chicken back anywhere.
But that is what I'm talking about. The integrity of the process. The integrity of the voter.
There's no integrity.
There's no integrity in it.
No.
Integrity.
Hello. There must be integrity because at some point,
no integrity in the process.
If you don't vote, if you don't vote, you have to lie.
Yeah. There's no integrity in
the money from John Tom.
But it's a lie for you the money to begin with.
The man ask you, what you mean? What do you expect? I mean, what do you expect? I took your money. What do you expect? And it's done.
Did you vote?
There's no integrity.
Did you vote?
But
the question
do you expect?
is, did you vote for me? What did you vote for me?
Of course. What did you expect?
So you're gonna lie to him then?
Of course. Why not?
And that's what I'm talking about.
But him come lying. But that's him come lying to you. Him come lying to you first.
Yeah, but this is I think this is the challenge with fears. Not because he lied to you, you should then lie to him. You know, you don't have to stoop to his level. I think we have to rise above that.
I can't believe. Sorry, Nito. This is not the integrity question only arises if I'm giving big money
Okay.
and calling the shots. If I am giving small money, I don't see no integrity involved. It's not the same thing.
So lying is not part of the integrity.
But you, a politician, you get 6 chicken back, right? And you're pitting them a starve. And the man come and say, "Did I vote for you?" And you say either yes or no. It don't matter. To me, it's not an integrity issue. What I would be convincing the man who take the chicken is vote for the party that defend your interests best. Vote for the party that defend your interests best. Even if he take the chicken back and vote for the party that don't defend him interests, my role is not to tell him don't take the chicken back. And take a chicken back either way. No, to me, it don't matter. What my role is to show what we defend and why it's better to vote for a man who defend what we defend. Meaning the everyday, the grassroots people. There's no integrity when it's come to small money.
Nita.
Okay. So yeah.
Yeah.
Ratigan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the focus is a bit misplaced because we're focusing on the person receiving the bribe, and we're not focusing on the person offering the bribe. I'm not sure if receiving a bribe in Jamaica by a member of the public, if it's a criminal offense, but I do know that offering of a bribe from a public official, that is a criminal offense. So you're asking somebody who's at the bottom of the food chain to show some integrity and honesty, right? And the person who's supposed to be leading by example is the person committing the crime. So I don't see the parity there. If the politician,
Will, the fact is that the grassroots man is going to say to you, in his mind, I'm going to say, what do you mean by integrity? The man who giving out the bribe. Is that man may I follow him? Can I know says bribe him I get?
And you know what I'm going to say, John? I'm going to say, the man who's giving me the bribe, where you think him get the money from? That's what I'm going to say. Where you think him get the money from? You think it's by the sweat of his brow, him take money out and pocket and give me. I thief the money and give me. And the money belongs. In fact, some of them said the money belongs to me. Because the money that I should have been getting. And in thief it, I'm just give me what is mine. In fact, him said, this is a raw deal because I'm not getting what I'm supposed to get. I'm
getting the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
But even more than that to Will, because what happens is that when him offering the bribe, right, him really offering something which he has no business offering. That's the real thing about it.
True.
Right? So the whole integrity doesn't begin with the receiver. It begins with the person approaching the person for offer them the bribe.
Yeah, you know that's like blaming the rape victim, right? Because of the way she's dressed. And you now focus on the person who committed the rape.
Good example.
Yeah.
You punish the victim of the rape.
Yeah.
Because she wears a short skirt.
Correct.
All right. Well, on that note, can we shift to the main topic for discussion, which is the manifesto? John, you've been pushing for a discussion of this topic, the manifesto, for some time now. The floor is yours now, John. Can you just take us into your vision, your ideas, and what is this manifesto, and why you think a manifesto is important at this stage in our history?
Okay.
So I'm over to you, John.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize for coming on late because we have a computer that go back a couple of years well, and I think it runs slow. It needs to change. But ultimately, what is this manifesto? first I want to say I'm throwing out ideas. I don't want us to get caught up in terminology. I would like us to get caught up in substance. And this is important because not everything I call out is necessarily what should be there. The name is not important. Is we are a group. I am simply putting out an idea, which if it's agreed to by the group, we can take it deeper and deeper and put flesh on it. It says the bones I'm throwing out. What is the concept of a manifesto? It's a widely used term to mean a public declaration of aims and policies that a group may issue. It doesn't have to be a political party. So we are throwing out some concepts, some ideas to gather momentum. Why is this important? The time we're in is the reason. The time we're in is a time when people are not organized in the way they were, say, if we want to use an example, during the days of Michael Manley. The country is not, working people are not unionizing. They are not coming out to no big meeting. Maybe when the party conference call is when people come out. So that's an idea there. So we are throwing out a group of ideas which it's a written statement of public intentions and views. The second thing about a manifesto is that it really is a call to action. It's not a detailed description of each problem that the people face or that the group face. It's a set of principles, a call to action. The next thing is, who is our manifesto directed to? And this is important because it has to do with the name. The name should encapsulate who we're trying to, we're addressing our manifesto to. And that's why I took a disagreement to the idea of ghetto manifesto, because we are going beyond the ghetto. It includes the ghetto, but we are going beyond the ghetto. So I wrote down here, working people. I don't see everybody here today, but in our group, but it would be working people, youth, communities, middle class people, the intelligentsia, the unemployed, the rural poor. And I look at these people, regardless of religion, regardless of age or ethnicity, regardless of what community they live in. The manifesto recognizes the current dormant mood of the people. The main purpose is to educate. Education don't require mobilization. Education is aimed, as I said, to harness support towards the concepts and principles in the manifesto. So it's a period, a dormant period where education, I don't know why my screen is, I'm losing. Is there a problem, or it's just, everybody can hear, right?
Yeah, man.
No, just go.
Keep
Yes,
talking,
go
John.
ahead.
Yeah. So it's to expand our influence. Okay, what are the things that would be in a manifesto of the type that I'm suggesting? I would like that to be something we talk about. The name is something we should agree on. It don't have to be today, you know. I'm just throwing out these things and we should take it back. And I have some ideas on how to build the manifesto, which I would like to share. So one of the first, and this is not listed in order of priority. One of the first things in the manifesto is constitutional reform. Now, constitutional reform encompasses many things. What I personally would put at the top of the constitutional reform are the things that strengthen the influence of the working people over the politicians. For example, one of the biggest constitutional reforms is the concept of recall outside of elections. We are just talking about corruption. That could be another concept to strengthen the influence of the voter. But, you know, certain things that reduce or abolish the buying of votes, illegal buying of votes. A third element of constitutional reform relates to something like how the voters vote. Think procedures that strengthen the working people's voting rights. So those are just three ideas. The most important one to me is the one that relates to giving more power to the people outside of elections. Anything to do with that should be at the top of our list of constitutional reform. Now, there are many other constitutional reforms. I think we should highlight 2 or 3 as being the kernel of constitutional reform, quote unquote. That's number 1. It's, as again, I don't mean by saying number 1 that this is the most important one. Number 2. Okay, oh yes, I forgot. I gave some other examples. To demand constituency accountability is another constitutional reform. What does that mean? How money is spent, how office hours are kept, what access do the people have over their voter, over their politicians that they elect. Those are some of the things that should be included in constitutional reform, because most times in this democratic system, quote unquote, when you say the election, the parliamentarian or the MP is during election time and kill you with visit. As I used to say when I ran for local government, is that the politician come and him hug up the baby, kiss up the baby at the rum bar, and you know, take picture with him and the rest of baby mother them at the rum bar, and then the next 5 years you don't see them. So these are some of the things. The second important one, in my opinion, and this is, I would like the list of key things to be noted so that you guys can say to me, this don't make no sense, John, or we're missing this, or we're adding that. Housing. Housing remains a major right of the Jamaican people. Every family should have the right to decent housing. a roof over my head. If you remember, this is who did sing that, Nita? Diamonds?
Yeah, man, diamonds.
Right. Not so bad. Not so bad. Right?
You're good,
Roof
you're good,
over
you're
my
good.
head.
You're good, John.
Right? Toilet in every house. Why is that not a law? That today, 2023, we don't have a toilet in every house.
But John,
Eh?
John,
Yeah.
the Ministry of Foreign Affairs didn't have no toilets when they built the building down on the waterfront.
Stop it. Herb, stop it, man. You're embarrassing the Foreign Affairs Minister.
Adequate running water. So I put those under the thing of housing. That's a number 2. Number 3 is education. I don't think there is any the depth of love of the importance of education, as people believe that education will abolish poverty. I really think so. It's so ingrained from the colonial days that if you study hard and you go to school and you get you qualify, etc., etc. So what are the things in there? One of the key things will be to eliminate the advantage of money over ability in education. That don't abolish in Jamaica yet. So you need a system that regardless of where I come from, I have access to a good education. And if I get a good education, I should be able to go up the system. The second important thing on the education, just to list 2 examples, is the abolition of illiteracy at the elementary school level. You should not be going into a high school level illiterate. And the schools that you get basic education from, you should be able to say, we have abolished illiteracy among school-age children. Does that exist? Well, I would take on research in this area because I have some background in it. The fourth one is crime. Pardon me, we don't have to call it crime. We can call it anything so long as it's dealing with one of the burning issues facing working people. But the groups that I referred to, crime is one of them. Every Jamaican should have the right to live in any community free of crime. And in order to do that, you must have a system like what's going on in South Africa, where you can call the police, the soldiers, the crime fighters, to boot, where they have to report to the people on how they are improving. Now we have 3,000 guns a week. So your goal is to bring it down to 20 guns, illegal gun, or 0 illegal gun. But this would be, this goes back to the point made in our discussions about community policing, justice in the policing system, in the criminal justice system, etc. Number 5, women's rights. There should be an explicit call for women's rights in any manifesto in a today Jamaica. Right? And what do the things about women's rights mean? It goes back to grassroots people. The amount of raping among school-age children. Don't we know? We see it on the news. We hear about it on the bus. So the first level of respect for women is among the little girl them, the high school girl them. There should be laws, but it's not just the law, it's just what Ratigan said, the example of where if you wear a like a short skirt, don't mean say, yeah, look a man for rape you. So the women's rights, I only list the examples about in the community, in public life, but we've gone over into the working world where we need to be calling for equal pay for equal work. We need to be calling for the right, all of the standard rights which are exposed in the so-called advanced countries to do with the right to abortion, and you have that right. You meaning the woman have that right. So I just list them who will work on each one to identify the rights. We either can do it ourselves, or I think we should find people who are knowledgeable in depth about some of these areas. That's number 6. Number 7, I identify transparency and corruption as a specific area. Now, it may overlap with another area, but I think it's so important to the working people that we should identify it as a big area on its own. We're tired of hearing instances of politicians who have taken money, public money, whether it's whichever party. What are the principles that should be there regarding public funds? And then I think the two of them, transparency and corruption, really go hand in hand. There can be no fight against corruption without introducing measures of transparency. Number 8, I think, is where I reach on the number, is unemployment. I don't have enough data, but I believe among the youth, unemployment remains rife. It's the underside of crime. In other words, if you take a coin, the head and the tail, the top is the crime, the bottom, the tail is the unemployment. And we should develop strategies for work, how to get youth employed. And in the rural areas, is it a compulsory thing? Them have to come to Kingston to get work, or them have to come in a town? You can't get work in the countryside because it's not necessarily work that people want to go to, like farming. It used to be like that. I don't think that has changed. And a 9th area is climate change. I think we should have something in there about climate and transforming it's inconceivable to me that we can have a manifesto. We don't have to call it climate change, but we know what we're talking about. As a small country, whether we talk about the right to the protection of beach property, or we're talking about the transformation from fossil fuel to other forms of energy driving measures. I just identified those are 9 areas And I will stop there if there, can I repeat? One, this is a manifesto. The biggest challenge for me, if I may suggest, the biggest challenge we face, I think, is how to first of all, we need to put flesh on it and to make it really a working people document that people will support. Secondly, we need to find a way to publicize it. We publicize it first on this program. We are always referring to it. When issues come up, we try to find it, information in it, points in it. This is what we stand for, and this is how it would change something that's happening now. And by doing it that way, people can begin to identify with it. Thirdly, we must utilize the voice of those who are listening to the program. Nita boasts every week about how many thousands of people are listening to watching the program, after the fact and so on. Those people should both be contributing to the manifesto, helping us to formalize it, as well as helping to distribute it it should become their voice, in other words. And that is, to me, what the manifesto will be doing. All of the points I've mentioned, and you guys can help me. I'm always a little disturbed that there's no lady, no woman in the group, but I'm sure we know enough ladies that we can harness their support and get their feedback. For each area, I would say we should identify someone to be in charge of it. It doesn't mean they are going to build it up. It might mean that they will coordinate, people that are experts in the area. For example, what's his name from Portmore? Rupi, right? I would say Rupi is a man, things to do with working people, crime. Rattigan always a talk about crime and punishment. So him is a man that each of us can contribute to an area, both in terms of our own knowledge as well as knowing people. Herb is a man with good data. I am always impressed when he does posting information, he give good data. And I would certainly want to, he knows areas himself, but he also has access to good data. Whatever data we can bring to bear, no, that will not be put in the document. Manifesto don't have no data. What we want to do is use that data to really fine-tune the things that working people would consider important and critical based on real knowledge, real science, surveys, and so on. So those are my comments, gentlemen. I think I've listed 9 areas. If there are others, let's talk about them and the concept of how we would develop this and why we're doing it.
Okay. Gentlemen, the floor is open. Can you feedback?
Yes.
Can you get the feedback?
Yes. First of all, I just want to commend John for bringing it all together, because you really have me thinking. I've been thinking about it from you mentioned it before, and certainly as you made your presentation, I was moving along with it, and some questions were going through my mind, but then you kind of addressed some of them. For example, I wanted you to to expand more on the matter of purpose, but then you kind of answered that by saying that we all should try to put our heads together in terms of coming up with it being a way in which we can make it really purposeful, and that's fine. We can work on that together. Um, Another question that came to mind was I noticed, even though you say it's a working people manifesto, you left out one critical section of the populace, which is the private sector. You never said anything about that. So I don't know if that was intentional or if there's a particular reason why you never mentioned that area, right, in terms of what they could bring to bear in the circumstance. Another thing too, which I think has to definitely be involved in it, and we have to really do a comprehensive, not just a comprehensive study, but a comprehensive discussion about it, is the economy itself, right? And when I say the economy itself, I mean, even though the economy means, the lives of the people altogether, but in terms of giving it some direction in terms of where it should go, it should be going, right? And then the last thing which I would want to speak on too, and that should be given its own section, even though you mention it, I have a different take on it. I think that what we need is not constitutional reform. We need a constitution, because constitutional reform, based on my understanding, means taking what we have, which we call a constitution, right, and try to do some patchwork on it. And that's not what we need. We need a real constitution, a constitution that speaks to us, right? And there are particular reasons for that too, but I can get into that discussion. Like I said, that is gonna be another comprehensive discussion which we'll have to take on, right, at some point. But these are some of the things that stood out for me. But I think, I can say more too on the purpose, but as we get into the discussion, we can get into that.
Last,
Yeah,
Nothing
and
else?
I'll start off around the same concept that Patrick started about in terms of purpose. I think it's a good exercise that we're discussing working people's manifesto. The reason for me is that it is good that we can develop some kind of concept that the people listening to us and the people who we have influence and contact with can have some kind of guide, some kind of areas around which we can discuss issues that is of importance to us, not in a partisan way, but in terms of issues which people need to look at and unite around, even in looking at what their politicians, what their political representatives are doing. This kind of exercise gives people a kind of outlook from which to judge what their politicians are doing and what their community representatives are doing, whether it is of benefit to them, and what kinds of improvements are needed in certain areas of political and social activity. So from that perspective, I think it is a good idea. I think any manifesto or any program around which we try to get discussion should focus on two main aspects: to get the people to examine to what extent whatever the politicians are doing is affecting or giving them economic justice and social justice. Economic justice in terms of helping them to look at how the resources of the country is distributed, how the wealth of the country is distributed, and how working people and ordinary people can better share in these resources, whether it is in response to getting higher wages, better social, better services, and better economic opportunities. This kind of thing that we are doing, it can help stimulate ideas in people's minds, to think around these things, to think about to what extent the political system is giving them the kind of rights that they deserve, the kind of dignity that they deserve, the kind of support in terms of education, in terms of health services, in terms of criminal justice, all of those things. So I think this exercise can help people to focus and create discussions around these areas and a launching pad from which they can judge what the politicians are doing, what the politicians are proposing in their constituencies. One of the things I think was missing from John's presentation, which I think should have been on its own plane, was the question of like participation on itself, apart from the right to recall and have some control over the political process. I mean, I thought that there should be some focus on some kind of participatory democracy, right? That we can educate people around what is participatory democracy, how will it work, what kind of organizational structure will it take in the communities and in the political structure of the country to get people to participate more in the decision-making process that exists inside the country, and how can they control and direct policies, whether it's policies towards youth, policies towards community development, policies towards workers. There needs to be some kind of structure and some discussion around participation in the political process, in the economic process of the country. One other aspect I think should be in focus on its own is the whole question of workers' rights in itself. I think in Jamaica right now, I don't even think there is a right to strike in Jamaica. I think some time ago, some court decision say workers in Jamaica don't have a right to strike, right? We need to discuss issues like those and how the Constitution views, how the Constitution views and defends that aspect of workers' rights. On the question of youths, two other things I think is important in that area is the question of training of youths. What kind of training youths get exposed to, especially when youths fall into the criminal justice system. What kind of training is there, right, to get youths out of that system? What kind of rehabilitating training and social service support exists in the system, right? We're talking about crime, and we know the age range of the people who are most affected by crime, and it's largely the youths of the country. When these youths commit themselves, what is there? What is the social support that exists to get these youths back on track out of the criminal justice system? Yeah, I'll leave it there for now. That's my initial contribution.
Ratigan, Herbert.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Listen, I'm impressed, John. You've been doing a lot of reading and your homework. And it's very similar. 2 weeks ago, we had a huge meeting here in Northeast diaspora meeting in Northeast US, and our group presented, on good governance. All right, we were the governance group, and we brought up a lot of what you were saying. Now, I was looking around for manifesto and good governance that's practical at the city level, township level, because this is one of the areas where we need an adversarial system to where the towns and the cities that we have are making demands of the national government, right? Not working hand in hand with them to deceive and deny people services, but working with them, making those demands in a logical, um, you know, fashion that would do more long term planning. Now, with what Les was saying, you need interventions right now because we have a very poor education system that has produced a lot of graduates who can't comprehend, read, or write. So, how do you make all these corrections? Because those are the folks that are falling behind and who are failing in the system currently in Jamaica. So, how do you bring them up to speed? You know, you have to concentrate on that group because they can wreck any plan. The best laid plans you have is going to be wrecked by the people that cannot participate or feel that they're being left behind. And you can go out and you can get the private sector involved. We have a start already in Jamaica called the Project Star, where the private sector and the police are involved. But the problem is, it's not doing enough at a high tempo. In other words, not enough participation, not enough planning went into it They start out with maybe one or two places. You need 14 parishes involved in something like that, because you do have private sectors in all 14 parishes, and they can play a role in the development of young people, especially those who have fallen off the wagon and were left behind. Right? I put in the private chat, there was a manifesto for good governance signed by mayors in the Philippines, right? And that commitment would cover public transparency. Think about that. There's a lot of contracting in the public domain, which people don't read about, they don't see it, they're not even aware that it exists. There's a lot of contracts between USAID, UK aid, Canadian aid, and the public, but they don't read about it, they don't Google it, they don't know about it, they don't even know it exists. But these are programs that you'll hear me talk about a lot. American Friends of Jamaica, their period of giving away money for projects started this month, November, will continue all the way to February. And then the FIFA Foundation stuff kicks in April. So if people are in the planning mood and the cooperation mood, in other words, you have a CDC where everybody within the parish has come together in that community, you make your requests. But if you can't come together and you don't talk to each other, which is a problem, communication is a major problem, then you're going to have a hard time coordinating and getting anything done. Right? The public transparency of the things that are happening, where the money is going, who's getting what, that's important. Integrity. Can you overemphasize that? Because if you have no integrity, if you were buying votes from the start, if you were selling your vote from the start, then obviously you are operating on the basis of cash money that's being given to you, quid pro quo. In other words, something for something, right? Empowering youth participation. Talk about Project Star, that's just one piece of it. But once you get the youth together through sports or whatever, now you got to come up with a training plan. Not everybody can fix AC units. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Some people couldn't sell their way out of a store, even if the goods people wanted to sit in front of them. They just don't have that personality. So, how do you identify what the needs and what the abilities of the younger population? You may have to do it through some kind of testing, just to figure out where their weaknesses are and how you can strengthen those weaknesses, right? You have sustainability. Right. Housing. John talking about housing, and I said, I think I said it last week. If you, the government, provide 70,000 units as your promise, how are they going to sustain themselves in those units? How are they going to avoid those units and that community from being run down and from people start stealing and shooting up the place? Because they're completely frustrated with their inability to earn enough income to pay for Jamaica's high electric bills, where JP has been killing them for the decades. So what you have to do, think about what Dr. John Lennon mentioned before. You need more alternative energy. We have a mountain range going through Jamaica. It should be dotted with the big windmills, wind farms, producing the electricity on either side of the mountain range to the communities down below. Where you don't have that, you can put up, like they have done in Hawaii and they do in parts of Africa. You get the sunroofs that can actually be the panels for producing electricity in the place. But the government is selfish because they're getting the payoff from JPS and they own parts of JPS. And it's to their benefit to continue with their higher rates of electricity. Right? That transparency is not apparent to the people of Jamaica. The people of Jamaica need to understand that. As long as there's a payoff or a kickback scheme or government-owned piece of JPS, you're going to be suffering with JPS. But you do need the alternative energy in there to ease people's pain. If you know, in other words, we're talking about putting them inside these homes that you build for them, but you talk about having the panel roof. I believe Elon Musk has the entire roof that they can put on. That is a panel that sucks up enough sun to empower the entire household and put back electricity in going in the opposite direction, back into the street. Right? Now, if you have a system of justice without bias or discrimination, how do you create that? When you have the JLP, PNP stigma, UIC stigma, right? Or when you have Mr. Rattigan trying to get a member of parliament adjudicated in the system to understand where did all of $99,000 go. And the court don't want to ask that question. They're dealing with who got the money. Government send 10,000 letters saying they never got any money. And this one person can't answer where the money went when the person who gave the money said they gave it to her. Right? But you take up some other person from an underserved community, take up all those women at the Scotia Bank and several other banks that recently went to prison for ripping off the banks. Right? Which community they came from? And why did their adjudication go by so fast? They head spinning in prison right now. And you have the Minister of Government who can't account for filing taxes or where the money went to. She's running around talking smack and people just let it go by. People of Jamaica dead to the world. Again, not enough people reading, not enough people understanding, not enough people dealing with the corruption in the system. Right? And so, you know, the duties and responsibilities of all your public servants are important. But there's over 2 or 3 dozen public servants that are coming up with illicit gains from the Integrity Commission. That's in addition to the 6 ministers of government, including the good Prime Minister, that should be coming up shortly. So that's the kind of governance detail that has to happen for John's program to succeed. Because if it doesn't happen, then everybody is every man for themselves, or every man and woman for themselves.
Rattigan, you have anything to add?
Not much more, except to say that, and just have a couple of questions for John. I've gone through lots of manifestos, and they're all like pie in the sky thing. They all come with, they don't come with fixed dates as such. They say we hope to, things of that nature, things that you can't really measure. And so I'm curious as to a timeline and I'm curious as to who is this manifesto? Who will it be designed for? I know you mentioned something about the youth and all that, but how do you plan? I'm trying to figure out in my mind, how do you plan? What group do you plan to sell it to? How do you sell it to them? What effect will it have? And will it be part of a community-based thing or a government thing? Because all the parties have their own manifestos, every single one of them. And so is this just another manifesto? I mean, how will this become effective beyond just reading material?
I think that goes to the same point we raised in terms of purpose. That will be covered in the purpose. When we get to that discussion, definitely that will be covered there.
Because
that was part of what I was raising, and also what last raised. So, but that is not a question that could just be answered now, because even John said it in his presentation that what he said, he mentioned that we would need to expand on it in terms of making it more purposeful.
Well,
right?
why don't we allow John to respond then?
Yeah,
John?
I am. Well, first of all, I agree with 99% of the comments. I agree with. I would like to take it forward and put myself on the line rather than come to an agreement here. I will take the comments made, put it in a document, and email it to everybody before the next meeting. You hear that, Mikey?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing for me, because my family leaving on Tuesday. So I have between Tuesday and Friday to get it out to you in paper. And I'm going to try and incorporate. For example, very good subject, the thing about the capitalists, private sector, we don't call them capitalists, we say private sector, is a good point. They are in the they have to be in this manifesto. What we should do is simply fine-tune the main issues. A lot of what Herb said, I think, can be incorporated under the area of integrity and corruption. So a manifesto does what every manifesto does will. It don't necessarily have a timeline, because the timeline requires the people to embrace the manifesto and to be able to demand of politicians that they speak to this program. If I am a member of the public, whatever role I play, the recommendation, the aspect of the manifesto that appealed to me, I would embrace it. That's the idea. So this is the first stage here, is a work in progress towards refining this manifesto. It's not today we're going to decide. I would try and put something out based on what you guys have said, and taking into account all of the comments that have been made. And then we will have something in black and white. Now, we can either agree, we will talk about it next week. I mean, at the next meeting. What is next week? Christmas? No. Next week.
New Year, John. New Year.
Never month.
New
No.
Year.
John,
Yeah.
here's why I'm asking the question. Because a manifesto, as we know manifestos to be, they're generally from political parties seeking to convince people to vote for them. So I'm trying to figure out this manifesto, who is sending out this manifesto? And And if also, that's one thing, who's sending out this manifesto? Because we're not a political party. So I'm trying to figure out who's actually sending this thing out. What are we trying to achieve by this? Are we trying to get votes? Are we trying to increase people's knowledge or awareness or whatever? And the third part of that is, if you go and you look at, for example, the 2016 and the 2020 JLP manifestos, they address some of the very same things that you brought up. I'm sure your manifesto is probably going to go a bit deeper, but they address some of the same things: housing, constitutional reform, so on and so forth. And I'm just, before we go down this road, I like to exert a little foresight. I'm not a naysayer, all right? I believe it's a good idea in general, but I'm trying to just find out the details before going down the road and say, well, wait a minute, we're down the road. Well, what are we really doing? I mean, what's the purpose of this? And let me just digress a bit to talk about, if you don't mind, Nita, with your permission, there's a gentleman, I don't know if it's somebody by the name of Scotty in
Go
the,
ahead.
yeah, somebody in the chat. And what they actually said was that we're wasting our time. We should be looking at the UIC's manifesto and
Who is
refine it.
URC?
UIC, right? No, just a
Who is
quick.
UIC?
Oh, the third party, United Independent Congress, I think it's called. You formerly led by Mr. Patterson, now led by a doctor. I forgot her last name. She was on the program yesterday.
Dr.
But
Brown something.
yeah, the reason why I mentioned that is, Scotty, if you're listening to me, the UIC is a political party. They claim to have, well, they have enough resources to the point where they compose their own manifesto. They should not be looking to people outside of the UIC to help them define and refine their manifesto. They need to do that themselves. Another reason why I would not be interested in the UIC's manifesto is because it promotes prostitution, it promotes drug abuse, and promotes unrestricted gambling, among other things. I cannot support that. So it would be futile for me to even look at that and say I'm going to refine it. If it needs refinement, they should do it themselves. And Scott, if you listened to the program yesterday, and if you didn't, I suggest you go and look at the Reason with Ratigan program yesterday, where we had on the interim president. And she herself wasn't even aware of these things in the manifesto. Because when I asked her about them, she said, I'm looking at the principles and I don't see them. Where are you talking? Where are you talking? And then I said, okay, give me a few minutes. And I pulled it up and I read them to her. And she ended up a nice lady. I mean, I like her. Yeah, nice lady, but she ended up in a quandary because she really couldn't. She wasn't. I don't think she was fully aware that those precepts, those concepts were in there. And
She's
so
up a creek without a paddle. That's where it is.
Exactly. It was difficult for her to really answer it. So, Scotty, I can't help you there, and I don't think you should be looking to this panel to help you with the UIC's manifesto. I think
that was Dr. Brown Johnson.
Dr. Brown Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mr.
So,
Brown.
right. So, and like OT said, she was caught off guard. And I mean, you shouldn't be caught off guard about your own manifesto. Maybe if somebody else asks you about the PNP manifesto or the JLP, you can say, well, I'm not a member of that party, so you can't hold me responsible for knowing what's in there. But your own manifesto, you should know. That's your roadmap to success. You should know what's in that thing.
But it also said two things about her quite clearly. The first thing is, I use the phrase up a creek without a paddle. But basically what it is that she has no experience. That's the first thing, right? She has no experience dealing with them, with documentation of that sort. And secondly, I'm not sure a lot of them who use the term manifesto even understand what it means.
That's
right.
true.
I don't think they can actually define what a manifesto is, right? And just to put some credibility to this, because I kind of took John's idea when he mentioned it first, and I thought about it quite carefully. And that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to really having a clear definition as to what a manifesto is. Because like you said, Will, a lot of people who are familiar with manifesto are familiar with it from the standpoint of a political party putting forward a manifesto to run in an election and so on. But a manifesto can be several things.
True.
Right? The main thing is, right? The fundamental thing is that a manifesto is really supposed to be a working document, right? Now, looking at a working document in our context, right, and using the name manifesto, what I'm thinking about is our group coming up with something which is gonna be where we take from, you know, all our support around us and so on, right? Put together all ideas in terms of what could constitute a good working document for Jamaica going forward, right? Something that we can all unite around, right? Because it is really us putting our idea out there. It is not about running for office. It is not about tabling something in parliament or anything like that. It is not that kind of document. It is what we conceive as a working document where we can look at, you know, the Jamaican context, right? And look at where we can go, what we can do with this, right? What we can do with these ideas, right? And have something substantial on the table that we can use as a guide to discuss and then draw from it, right? What we can use and so on going forward.
Gentlemen, if I can, sorry, Nas.
Can I
Go
say
ahead.
something before you respond, John? My take on the whole thing, Rattigan, is that we come in here every week and we're discussing political issues, social issues in the country. I mean, this manifesto that we're talking about and that John is talking about, I see it as important because what it does, it gives some context to the discussions that we've been having. And it brings some of the ideas that we have been talking about into a kind of framework in which some of our audience can see where we are coming from and some of the areas around which the discussions that we have been having evolve. For example, we're talking about crime and justice. If we have a manifesto that looks at some of the various issues that's happening in the Jamaican society and put them in a certain perspective, it can bring some more clarity as to how the whole crime and violence situation fits into the overall picture of the Jamaican context, and some other proposals, right, that needs to be considered when considering crime and violence or considering issues of health and education. So it kind of broadens the context of the discussions that we have been having and help people to themselves not just agree with what we are saying in our manifesto, but to examine them and come up with even additional proposals to even put flesh on what we have been saying. And it helps them to judge what the politicians, what the JLP is saying, what the PNP is saying, what the UIC is saying, right? They have a broader picture of how these things, you know, are formulated in the society and what impacts what, you know. I think it is important. And that's the purpose I think it will serve. Not a purpose that we are trying to garner votes to support any particular political party or party organization, but to help the people who listen to us find some kind of context, for the discussions that we have been having.
somebody,
Gentle,
somebody put in the chat room. Hey, Mr. Brown Brown, big up yourself. Mrs. said that it's not too late for the panel to form a party because it will be a landslide victory. Thanks for the support and the encouragement, and the belief. Yeah.
Yeah.
But one quick thing. This UIC thing. There's another gentleman, Milton Brady. He said that the UIC is not they're not promoting prostitution, drug use, and gambling. They're just saying that you can engage in it, but don't force it on anyone. And that's not quite true because they're asking for repeal of the laws against it. And also, I'm asking Milton a question. If the idea then is that you can do it, but don't force anyone, are you going to craft a law that says it's illegal to force somebody to engage in drug use, prostitution, and gambling? Because I'd love to see that law. If the law is saying you can't force somebody to do it, how the hell do you prove that somebody was forced to do drugs? And how do you do that then? And who's going to enforce that? Enforce the forceful part of it. Who's going to enforce that?
You mean
Milton, look.
enforce?
Gentlemen, it is obvious that this discussion will have to take place more than one occasion. It has to be a series of discussion. Okay, I share Rattigan's concern, sentiment, but I think this is a good start. It's a good start. We need to continue it, and it can't be just one Sunday. The question for me is, how do we get the listeners involved, the community involved in what we are doing? Because we need to hear, we need to have their input in what we are doing. We need to.
Okay. Mike,
there are several ways that can be done.
Yes, I know.
Let me say this, Mike.
Go ahead, Earl.
The reason I brought up the Manifesto for Good Governance, which is what we're aiming at, is because it was done amongst the mayors. That's as low as you can go. When you get to a little township, a little village mayor. So does Jamaica have a mayor's conference where the mayors can come together and speak to this? If not, maybe it's a good idea if we could promote such an event and put this out to them as a manifesto that they can follow, right? So the bottom line here is, let's try and get something out there. Let's try and get something done in that direction. Because we ourselves, when the name Herb and Rattigan and Patrick, when those names come up, they think anti-government, anti-social, anti-everything. Right? They don't want to hear from us, but because we've been blasting away at them with a machine gun every Sunday.
I wonder what they would say about John Horton.
Well, John they might like John's bald head, and they might think he's you've been reincarnated and want to deal with him.
No, they will ask the question, where him come from, and then them will look up a mystery.
Which cannot be found on Facebook. But gentlemen, before you close, Nita, I want to suggest, go back to my recommendation, which is simply I see where the concern about the purpose is. I'm not suggesting by any means it's not a clear concern. It can be addressed if we understand this to be a dynamic document. Okay? And how it's done, how we develop it, is dynamic, but at the end of the day, it's still a manifesto. It does not have a timeline. It may have things in it that sound pie in the sky. I think that's a good example of what Rattigan, the term that Rattigan used. It doesn't make it any less a manifesto and any less to our purpose. What we're trying to do, we're trying to put out there certain green lights that regardless of who among the everyday people can take those green lights and measure it. Is this something of benefit to me? If it's a benefit to me meaning to them, would they embrace it? Whether they're looking at a speaker who is speaking, whether they're looking at a party, whether it's the PNP or JLP, or the one you guys just tell me about that I've never heard of before. What name? UIP?
UIC.
UIC. You know, it doesn't matter. If you look at history, there are many organizations that are not parties that had manifestos. So what I'm suggesting we do is we take it from just a concept, put it on paper, and we circulate it before the next meeting. It's up to you, Nita, whether you think the cycle of a week is too short. Do we spend another meeting on this?
No, go ahead, man.
I have a proposal.
Yes.
And I mean, this proposal is for this program and also for Rattigan's program. I think both programs should try to develop some kind of mailing list. Like some of the people who are listeners to these programs, I believe we should have some kind of means of reaching these people outside of like we just coming here talking and these people commenting in the comment section. And why I'm saying this is that there are going to be times when we have like important communications that is coming like from discussions or things, you know, that's probably coming in the pipeline, which we might want to communicate to those people. Plus, I think programs like these should have some means of contact with the people who listen to the programs and watch the programs outside of just the comment sections.
We do, because when they subscribe, they have to provide us with certain information.
So I think we should like develop a mailing list and like for like what John is doing, things like these we can, you know, circulate amongst these people.
A wider group.
Yes.
So I'm clear in my head. The question is how to operationalize. First of all, we have to agree on the substance of this manifesto. And part of that agreement is to agree on the purpose. And what I'm suggesting, gentlemen, is the next step, which is to put out something back to you based on the feedback and how to operationalize this manifesto. We don't have to call it that word. I really want us not to get hung up on terminology, right? I don't like the term for good governance or manifesto for good.
Or you can just call it simply a working document.
A working document for change in Jamaica.
Well, I tell you right there, so we have the answer.
Hold on. A working document for a change in Jamaica or a working document for changing Jamaica?
For change.
For change. For change in Jamaica.
Or for a change?
No. Change.
The reason why I ask,
Whether
the
a
reason why I ask,
change or just change.
no. The reason why I ask is because you don't want it to sound too political, right? And then
Yeah,
if you
that's so
say,
more like a campaign.
right, you say we're
Like we're
document for
campaigning
a
for.
change.
Yeah,
Yeah, if it's
yeah,
a changing Jamaica, then to me it's more appealing. But
yeah,
if you say a
yeah, yeah,
change, because it goes hand in hand with a popular slogan right
yeah,
now.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Yes,
We
yes,
just
you're
call
right.
it a working document because that really is being more inviting
But
for
but do, do,
for involvement.
Gentlemen,
do you
let we
gentlemen
go.
remember this slogan? Follow the man with the plan, outline
Yeah.
just like John did, and they lose, right? That was Norman Manley.
Yeah.
Follow
Yeah.
the man with the plan. Same thing John just outlined there. You see where I'm coming from, John? They find ways to attack the goodness that we try to create
Mm-hmm.
simply because it's their way or the highway. So
Okay.
we have to convince maybe the next party coming into power to accept this, and they already claim they have a manifesto. So can
Yeah, but we wouldn't be looking for presented to no party. Period.
no, we
It's
want to get the mayors as a group because it's down at their level where the rubber is meeting the road. You understand what I'm saying? It's at
yeah.
that
Well, but in that sense, Herb, that would mean after the election and mayors are decided on and so on, then we might be looking to approach the mayors jointly, right,
yeah.
to discuss
Well,
it.
after or before.
Gentlemen,
What it
let's
comes
not.
down to is they need
I
something
think
to
we're
talk
twisting
about.
ears.
Hello. Let's not jump ahead of yourself. Let's start where we are right now. The basic thing is John is going to summarize something and circulate it. Right? Let us hold it at that for the time being. Once we get that, then we can revisit all the different concepts, right? Presented. But let's take one step at a time. Okay. On that note, I want to thank everyone for
no,
taking part. Go
no,
ahead.
hold on before you go. Before you start my closing speech, let me just make one quick announcement.
Yeah.
The One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation, folks, it's up and running, and the Kamina Johnson Smith decision, which says that if you don't live in Jamaica, you don't have standing to bring lawsuits against politicians you believe to be corrupt or involved in law breaking or whatever. That decision was appealed on Wednesday. So, and the One Jamaica Legal Defense Fund is foundation is actually funding the appeal. I've seen the document, looks really good. We're hopeful that the Court of Appeal will see it that way and send the matter back to the Supreme Court, and then we'll start all over again. This time it's going to be different. However, we're prepared to take it to the Privy Council if it doesn't work out, because this is a significant issue for all Jamaicans. Because it essentially says if you live overseas, you don't have standing, and if you live in Jamaica, it's saying that if you're not directly affected by the actions of politicians, then you have no standing to bring an action, which is nonsense. So we'll see how that works out. Second thing is, we're looking at the tabling of the integrity commission's reports, and we are in dialogue with the attorneys right now because we believe that this is a public interest matter and that the names should be revealed to the public. They had their convention or the conference today, and the 6 people, the unnamed 6 people, they were on the stage today when the Prime Minister gave his speech, and that's a travesty. They shouldn't be there. The name should have been revealed a while back. So we're thinking of we're in dialogue right now about starting a lawsuit, forcing the Speaker to follow convention and table the report so that the names can be released, so we can know who these politicians are what the allegations are, and also what the corruption prosecutor's decision is, whether to prosecute or not to prosecute. So in order to do all of that, we need your support. We need your financial support. We need your spiritual support. We need your psychological support and otherwise, because we cannot file these things without paying the attorneys. The foundation's website is ojldf.gov. No, .org.
That all.
That's the one to make the
OJLDF
donation.
stands. I beg your pardon?
Is that the website where you can make the donation?
Yes.
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 Okay. So
And
why don't
yes.
you just send it to us direct?
Yes, I apologize. I should have. I'll send it to Nita so that next week we can send it.
No,
to-
man,
but this is
don't
on-
send it to Nita. If you go to Waterhouse Vibe, all of us
Mhm.
email is right there. Just send it to
Okay,
us.
fair enough. All right, fair enough. I'll do that. And then, folks, one last plug. Tune in tonight at 7. Wayne Lonesome. We're gonna explore we're gonna analyze, dissect, assess the convention that took place today, or the conference that took place today. Quite
Well,
interesting.
Uh,
I want, I
one,
want,
one last thing. I'm impressed with the participation in the program yesterday. Right? It was,
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know,
nice.
it was phenomenal.
Yeah, but I want to say one thing though, right? One very important thing that you keep leaving out, Will, right? Especially when you speak about this case and the ruling and so on. This case is actually, this is history. This is history. This is significant in several ways, right? And that's one of the reasons why I keep stressing the point that we must stop making the mistake and treating this as if this is you bringing action,
True.
right, against the
politician.
minister, right?
Right.
That's one. The other thing is that it is significant, right, historically, because it's not gonna be just political record. It's gonna be legal record too, right? This is happening in the courts and all of that. And I suggest strongly, right? I would love to see it reach all the way up the top, right? Because there will be all these lessons to draw out. There will be all these lessons to draw out.
And Patrick,
As a historian
Patrick,
myself, I know the significance of it.
Patrick,
So
it's so significant that the court has even broadened the context of the lawsuit, right?
Yes,
In
yes.
that ruling about standing, the court has broadened the whole context of the thing because it has brought in so much more of the interest of the diaspora.
Sure.
And that particular thing about the diaspora is so significant, just as significant as the initial point of the lawsuit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is historical for more than one point.
You're right. You're right, Lass.
This is
Because
like
the whole thing.
this is like indelibly ink now. Them can't rub
Yeah,
this
man.
out.
All right,
This is
gentlemen.
record.
Gentlemen, we have to cut it.
Okay.
And
Hey, Mike, I just want to make one note quickly. Brittany Lyon in the chat said, look at what Chuck said, Minister Chuck. If citizens withhold information from law enforcement, the citizens should be locked up. Right? Now, think about this. If they still have the motto out there, who for dead, informer for dead. Right? And the police themselves were telling the dons and other criminals who called in and informed on them. If you can't defend the integrity of the police force and the integrity of the tip system, right? Then you cannot start jailing people who refuse to talk. Because if they talk, you can't defend them. You can't put them in enough people in witness protection in every parish. So I want you guys to think about that. Because this man want jail people over not saying anything.
Well,
That's a
here-
very
here's the thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Lass. Here's the thing with that. There is a law in Jamaica, and it's in most jurisdictions. Misprision of a felony.
Yeah.
What that means is if you know that somebody committed a crime and you don't report it, you're guilty of that crime. But now when they said, okay, you tell us, are we going to arrest you? What choice do you give the people when they have to go back and live in that community?
Yep.
I mean, it makes no sense. I mean, they do have the right to arrest you for not telling them about the crime, but you're forcing somebody now to basically commit suicide. If they say, okay, I'm going to lock you up if you don't tell me, then the choice is, okay, I tell you, but then I have to go back to this community. And we know how it is in Jamaica. Once you make the statement, the person against whom the statement was made, they'll know before you get back to the community. So, I mean, don't. By the way, this is the same person who said the speaker may not be right, but her decision is final. Think about that.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I think we have gone over the time allotted. I want to thank you very much for a very informative discussion. John, you'll
Yes,
work on that documents and circulate for the next meeting, right?
Correct.
Okay. I just want to read something here so that the folks understand where we are.
Going over the limit.
No. What I'm reading
I'm joking, Mikey.
is the following. I need to make this out there. The views expressed in this program are those of the speakers. They do not necessarily reflect those of Waterhouse Vibes.
In other words, don't sue Michael Nita.
No, you have to add a Waterhouse Vibes and the host. Put the host in there.
And the host. Okay. Gentlemen, we have a good discussion, so let's continue until next Sunday.
Yeah, man.
At 3.
Blessings.
What good, my brethren, and stay strong.
All right, everybody stay healthy. Be good.
All right.
Yes, stay healthy.
Yeah.
All right.
See you later.
Cool.
Will.
Don't eat too much.
Yeah.
That's right. Pure
Not Christmas
leftovers,
yet.
man. Bunch of leftovers. My fridge busting with leftovers.
No. I'm out.